Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining us for this webinar about professional development specialists for the Council for Professional Recognition. My name is Larissa. I'm one of the external specialist engagement managers, and my other lovely manager is Shonda. She's here with us as well.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us today. We're so happy that you have an interest in becoming a PD specialist.
Yes.
We're always in recruitment mode, aren't we?
Always in recruitment mode. So Shonda is going to walk you through the presentation today and tell you a little more about being a professional development specialist. And we are going to have a question and answer session after the presentation is over. So any questions that you have throughout the presentation, feel free to put them in that question box on your tool there, and we'll address them at the end. Any question, no matter how big or small, we're happy to answer that for you, because we want to make sure that you have a full understanding of what it is to be a PD specialist. Okay, Shonda, take it away.
Thanks, Larissa. We're happy that you've joined us. Thank you so much for your interest in becoming a PD specialist. You'll hear me say professional development specialist, PD specialist, or PDS. Closer we get to the end, the more likely I will say PDS. Today we'll discuss the roles, responsibilities, qualifications, and the application process of becoming a PDS. So who are these PD specialists? Our PD specialists, we have probably a little over 8,100 people, not just domestically, but also abroad, who are serving as PD specialists. And these are people who share their knowledge and expertise in support of our candidates. So these are people who are seasoned and passionate about early childhood education, and they're also recognized for the professional contributions to the field. Now, our PDS serve a very special role in the credential process, and we could not have a credential without our PDS. So the PDS conducts the verification visit. This is an essential component of the candidate's process. This is where the candidate's competencies are assessed for 4 hours. The PDS use the council's R.O.R model, the review, observe, and reflect model during the verification visit. During the reflective dialogue component of the verification visit, this is where our PDS share through mentoring and coaching some of their expertise and coaches the candidate along and really engages in a dialogue to listen and hear about their philosophy and where they'd like to go, what their career trajectory may be in ECE. The point is to have credentialed early education educators who want to stay in the industry and build a career. And this is certainly the best first step in doing that, is having the CDA. So the responsibilities of our PDS, that again, they conduct the verification visit on behalf of the council. Now here's a particular note. We last year did about 50,000 applications, which included initial and renewal applications. So if we did that about half, there were at least 25,000 new initial applications. That means that over 25,000 verification visits were performed last year through our 8,100 PD specialists. That's a lot. That's a lot of work, many hours. And again, the verification visit lasts 4 hours. So if you multiply 25,000 times 4, that's 100,000 hours.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's 100,000 hours of actually being engaged during the verification visit, which does not include the scoring time, the time it takes to conduct the pre-verification checklist, driving, getting there, etc. So the PDS invests a lot of him or herself in this process. So that person is committed to maintaining the council's policies and procedures, and also serves as a vital part of protecting the integrity of their credential. We also require that our PDS stay abreast of our latest changes and modifications to our program. So not everyone is eligible. We're not an elite group per se, and not everyone is eligible to be a PDS. We do require that people have access to technology. That includes an active email address and access to the internet, because this is the way we communicate with our PDS. Because we have over 8,000 folks, we cannot call everyone. So our platform, Your Counsel, sends emails at every crucial step of the verification visit process. So that's how we communicate with you.
Also, that is how you would submit your scores.
Absolutely.
So it's very important that you have access to the internet, because you only have a certain amount of time in which you can submit the scores.
Yep, and complete the pre-verification checklist.
Yes, and communicate with the candidate.
Absolutely. So it's very important to, when you complete your application, to include the email address that you are most likely to use. Because if you use one that you use only sometimes, you'll forget that you actually used that email address. Then you'll call us and tell us that you've never received a notification, and that's primarily because a person has selected an email address that they rarely use. All right, so moving on, we do require our applicants to have knowledge and skills of working with diverse populations, as well as knowledge about the local and national standards and requirements of child care programs. All of our PDS are degreed, so they have at least one degree, either an associate's or a bachelor's degree in early childhood education or child development, elementary education or childhood education, home economics, child development. It can also include child psychology or social work, working with families, with young children, etc. We are looking for professionals who have experience in working with children from birth to 5. Also, we require all of our applicants to have coursework in early childhood education or child development. That would include 18 semester hours or 24 quarter hours. That says coursework hours, which is a mistake, but that should be quarter hours in either ECE or child development. We do require that everyone has experience working with children from birth to 5 years, and I just said that. And also, this is very important, have experience facilitating the professional growth of another adult. Now, who would have that level of experience? It could be a supervisor, a center director, department chair, a director of a program, either in a center or working for some level of the government. Could also do that through some level of volunteering.
Absolutely. It's not necessarily within your work environment that you've had this experience. We can consider other things. Now, one thing that's really important, that working with children birth to 5 years, if you are a center director or someone that's higher up that's not usually in the classroom, then you will need to demonstrate in your application that you do have the actual experience working with the children too, because we can't just assume that a center director has worked with the children.
That's a good point. So, center directors are typically a management position. Unless your position as a center director requires you to also be in the classroom, you'll need to include that on the application or within the application. A lot of times people will include center director thinking that is sufficient, and we will sometimes deny those applications because, remember, under experience, you have to have work experience working with children from birth to 5 years, not managing programs, not managing centers, but working directly with children. So it's very important that you include that, and it's very important that you include the age groups, because if you don't include the age groups, then we'll send you a note via email requiring more information, and if the person never responds, then we'll expire the application and you'll have to start all over again. So, let's just go ahead and complete it thoroughly as possible on the first round. We also require that our PDS be available to conduct assessments during the work week, or during when the center is open, because you do have some centers that are open on Saturdays as well, or 24-hour centers.
Now, if they are open 24 hours, and this is getting into the nitty-gritty, but 24 hours, you can't be there if the kids are asleep the whole time.
Exactly.
Because you can't assess the teacher really doing anything with the children.
And that applies not only to a 24-hour center, but even as a PDS and scheduling the verification visit, it shouldn't be during nap time.
Yep, exactly.
So that's an important question to ask the candidate, as we schedule this, does this include any nap time? Because, you can't observe the candidate during the nap time. Now, certainly you can conduct the reflective dialogue during that. That's an ideal time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But not observing them, in the classroom as the lead teacher. So who do we look for? We look for early education or child development specialists, people who enjoy working with diverse populations, who have a professional approach to work, who are committed to early childhood education. They understand the dynamics of observations and how to observe teachers in the classroom, people who enjoy working with candidates and giving back. These include center directors and owners, administrators, teachers, professors, trainers.
The list goes on and on.
The list goes on. A child psychologist, social workers. I mean, so many people in different subsets of early childhood education. So don't count yourself out if you're not a center director or an administrator or a teacher or a professor or a trainer, but you have some unique work experience working directly with children. We encourage you to apply.
Absolutely.
All right, so the application process. Before we get into this, I'd like to say that it's very important for the applicant to collect all the documentation needed before you sit down to actually complete or begin the application.
Yes.
This includes, you'll need a copy of your transcript. You'll need copies of your your training certificates. So they should include the number of hours. It should include the date, your name. These things should be clear and pretty obvious on those records. Your transcript should say your degree has been conferred.
Yes, that's important.
We actually read transcripts.
Yes.
Literally read every single transcript. So, and we need to understand your transcript. So the transcript has to also be in English. If you obtain your degree in another country, that needs to be articulated so we'll understand what the equivalency of your classes are compared to American colleges and universities. So that's very important.
And I just want to say, after this webinar, probably tomorrow, you're going to get a recorded version of this webinar, but you're also going to get links to some videos that will help you with the application process.
Yes.
Both in how to create an account in your council, and then 3 videos, that's a series, that walk you through every single step of the application process. And the first one is everything you're going to need ahead of time to get started. So definitely give those a look too, because that is going to help you make sure you're all set and ready to go.
And the videos are very short. They're 3 to 4 minutes.
3 to 4 minutes, yeah.
So, we could have created one huge.
It started as one huge video.
But we knew, adult learners, have short attention spans. So we've created them in really short bursts that would only require, from start to finish, no more than 4 minutes and 22 seconds maybe of your time. So don't worry if you don't get all of this here. We have those step-by-step instructional videos that are literally step 1, step 2, step 3, so that you don't have to stop and then contact us to ask us a question. We want you to get through there rather quickly, as quick as you can, in the most efficient way possible. And we thought creating these videos would be a part of that, as well as this today's webinar. So what you need to do in order to even begin is to establish an account on our platform, which is yourcouncil.org. Your Council is one word, so you'd go to yourcouncil.org. You see here on your screen that's the home page. That's what the home page looks like. You'll see highlighted in red, don't have an account. Click here. That's what you'll need to do to establish your account. It just asks you some general information, your name, your address, your email address, etc. That's how you establish your account. Just like if you were shopping online, same premise there. After you create your account, you'll need to submit your application. You submit your application only after you have completed it 100%. Our system will not allow you to submit if anything is missing. Like we said earlier, it's important for you to have all of your documents. It's also important for you to review those 4 essential videos.
Yes. And something to keep in mind, that word submit. Even if you think you have everything 100% filled out, you have to hit the submit button. And that sounds obvious, but it's not as obvious as you may think.
Right.
There is a section that will show you your status. And until your status says submitted, we don't have it.
Right.
So
it's
just keep
pending.
that in mind.
So if it's pending, we're not going to look at it.
Yeah.
For example, we have over 3,600 applications that are pending. So you have to submit. Literally press submit, click select, click submit in order to submit so that it comes to our side. So if your application is approved, so this is a very manual process for us because we read every application. Our system does not read it. Humans working here at the council read every application. So submit all of your documents, make sure all of your documents are legible. Make sure nothing is blurry or
pixelated.
Yeah, because if it is, we can't read it. We'll ask you for more information. We'll give you 30 days to submit more information. If you don't submit that information, then your application is expired. Then you'll have to start all over again. So teamwork makes the dream work. So by gathering all of your documents, reviewing the videos, sitting down where you have uninterrupted time will be best. You could probably complete this in less than 20 minutes, the application.
If you have everything.
If you have everything. And you're, moderately good typist, you can submit it. It's not rocket science. We do need information, and everything that we ask is on purpose. And again, we read every application. That means we're reading your transcripts. We're reading your certificates as well. So now if your application is approved, you'll receive an invitation to begin training in the council's learning management system, or the LMS. To engage in that LMS, you'll be required to pass an exam.
Yes.
If you don't pass the exam, you'll get a second chance to pass the exam. It's not very difficult, but it does require your attention. Once you've passed the exam and you've been endorsed, you are now ready to conduct verification visits for candidates or on behalf of candidates. So this is what the home screen looks like for our LMS. Very simple. You'll create a username and password to begin. Our training is self-paced, and you have a 2-limit attempt on the exam. After you pass everything, you are endorsed by the council. You may have 1 or more endorsements in the following settings: center-based preschool, center-based infant and toddler, family child care, and home visitor programs. Now, a lot of our PDS have 1 or more. Well, all of them have 1, yes, but many of them have more than 1 endorsement, and that is possible. And then you throw yourself a big party. You call all your friends, tell them that you've done this and that you've joined a community of over 8,100 ECE experts throughout the world. Now, we have different types of PDS, and they are identified by their endorsement number. The endorsement number for an individual PDS, this person conducts verification visits as an independent contractor of the council. Their numbers begin with the letter P, as in Paul. Agency PDS, their numbers begin with the letter A. An agency PDS conducts verification visits on behalf of an agency. Volunteer. Believe it or not, we have many volunteer PDS. These are people who are absolutely committed to early childhood education, and we're so thankful for them. They volunteer their time and expertise every verification visit. So shout out to all of them. Thank you. So the honorarium. We do pay a $100 honorarium only to the independent contractors who have an agreement with the council. That honorarium is received after each successfully completed verification visit. And I stress successfully completed. That verification visit has to meet all of our policies and procedures within the time frame that is required. So now you may think, where does the verification visit fit inside of the credential process? After the candidate's application has been approved, he or she can schedule either the exam first, then the verification visit, or vice versa. We don't mind which one comes first. They both have to be done. They're both used as a part of the credential decision on behalf of the council. So it doesn't matter which one comes first. So now, you're a PDS, you're in our system, a candidate has identified you as a possible PD specialist to conduct the verification visit on their behalf. You'll receive an initial email from us. This initial email will include the candidate's contact information, and this tells you that Shonda is in the process of applying for the credential and she has identified you as a PD specialist. This is an inquiry only of availability. Our system, your council, will not allow you to schedule the verification visit at this point. However, you are required to respond to the candidate through your council within 48 hours of your receipt of that email. So now here we are at your personal dashboard. This is what the dashboard looks like for everyone who is endorsed. You'll see at the very top, it has the person's name to the top right hand corner. You'll see that there are other icons there. You'll also see over to the left, beginning at profile, all the tabs that a PDS can select. If you notice here to the right, halfway down, you'll see message history. This is where you'll see all of the emails that our system has sent to your email. So you'll get it in two places, one on your personal dashboard and also via email. So now, to be or not to be the PD specialist. Now that you're a PD specialist, you may not qualify to serve as the PDS for every candidate. So it's very important as a PDS that you review the Professional Development Specialist Procedures Manual, where we have outlined in detail all conflicts of interest and other ethical considerations. So we say here, be aware of conflicts of interest. I think that's a nice way of saying know the conflicts of interest. So you can only conduct a verification visit in the setting where you are endorsed. So if I am a candidate and I've selected preschool, and say Larissa is the PDS, but she's only endorsed in family child care and infant and toddler, she will not be able to serve as my PD specialist. And our platform, your council, will not allow you to actually schedule that. So you'll receive a message that says the PDS endorsements do not match the candidate's setting.
Yeah.
So when you get that, you know that you don't have the right endorsement for that. So if conducting a bilingual CDA verification visit, the PD specialist must be bilingual in that language.
And must be certified bilingual, or like that must be part of their endorsement. There's a language specialization that happens during your application process. You have to have told us that you're bilingual, and we probably have to have vetted you to make sure. We will vet you to make sure that you actually are bilingual.
Right.
So you can't be bilingual but not have told us that.
Correct. So that means you must read, speak,
and write.
I knew I was leaving something out. Read, speak, and write in that language. And then if you're conducting a monolingual CDA verification visit, you must speak the language of the assessment. And this means that within that center, for example, let's say that it's a child development center and they speak Amharic pretty much exclusively because they're serving an Amharic speaking community. the PDS must be fluent in Amharic.
Yes.
Because the verification visit will be conducted, the entire verification visit will be conducted in that language.
Yes.
And that is the expectation. We do require that our PDS adhere to all of our policies and procedures. We do encourage everyone to call us or send us an email if there is a question. Otherwise, the candidate's candidacy is compromised. So to be or not to be the PD specialist, there are times when a PD specialist cannot serve. And this is when you are an immediate relative of the candidate.
And this doesn't just mean by blood. We've actually established too that even if you're the goddaughter or the godparent, if you call someone auntie or uncle,
absolutely,
even if they're not your biological aunt or uncle.
I think we all have people like that, you know, in our social realm.
Absolutely.
'Cause I have plenty of friends that have given birth, and I was there at birth, and I've known their children since then. You know, they all call me Auntie Shonda.
Exactly.
But they're not blood relatives. However, if they were a CDA candidate, I should not conduct that verification visit.
Exactly.
Because I can't be what?
Objective.
Correct. We are looking for objectivity. So also, you can't serve, or PDS can't serve if the person is a direct supervisor or employer. I think that's pretty obvious why.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I would hope so too. And also, if you're a coworker in the same group or classroom, or in the facility in which the candidate works, if you're a peer or a friend, I mean, that's an obvious one.
Yes.
Or even if you have bias towards groups of people.
Yes. Now, I was reading about this earlier today. There is something called implicit bias. We all have something in ourselves that is a bias against someone else. It is life. It is human nature. But you need to recognize it, and you need to recognize whether you can be objective about that or not. So it is what it is. We're not here to judge you. What we're asking you is to be truthful in yourself.
Yes. Be transparent.
Be transparent. You don't have to tell us why.
Nope.
You can just say, I'm not available.
Correct.
Yeah.
Very easy.
Yeah.
There may be other ethical conflicts of interest relating to the relationship of the candidate that would prohibit you from serving. So we are directing all PDS to consider the relationship not only with the candidate but also with the center, for example.
And the umbrella over all of this is objectivity.
Correct.
Can you be objective?
Right.
Or if the candidate does not receive their credential and they appeal the process, will we be able to look at it and say everything was above board and objective?
Right.
Or will they be able to come back and say, I think that this person had a bias against me?
Correct. So it's very important to always adhere to the policies and procedures because they protect our PD specialists.
Yes.
And part of our job is to develop trusting relationships with all of our PD specialists because if there is an appeal, we need to know for sure that you've upheld your end of the bargain.
Exactly.
So the confirmation email, after the application has been approved, you'll receive a confirmation email. It will also go over some of the conflicts of interest that you'll see there, 3 bullet points. You're not related to the candidate. You do not work in the candidate's classroom. You're not the candidate's direct supervisor. We'll also provide you more information or more detailed information on the council's conflict of interest policy, and I would encourage you to, as many times as possible, review that just to keep it in the forefront of your thinking. It also says if you have one of the conflicts of interest listed above that you're not able to serve as the PDS, that you are to notify the candidate by email or phone as soon as possible. And at this point, you still cannot schedule the verification visit. All right, so when can I schedule this verification visit?
Right. Because so far we've said no.
Right. We have lots of checks and balances here. When you receive what we call the ready to schedule email, then you can schedule. So you will either send the candidate a suggested date and time, or the candidate will send you a suggested date or time. And then you guys will come together in agreement on when you will show up. It's very important for you to read all of these bullet points here with regards to scheduling the verification visit. You'll notice on the, second from the last bullet, you'll see that it says, remember that you must log into your portal to complete the pre-VV checklist before the system will allow you to place the candidate's scheduled date on your calendar. The verification visit cannot be conducted until these required steps are completed. In our system, there's no way to circumvent what happens next. You have to follow the procedure. So you have to complete that pre-verification visit checklist first. This has a list of the things that you need to go over with the candidate prior to scheduling.
As well as the center director.
And
it's imperative that this is done at least 48 hours before the visit is scheduled. So if they contact you on Wednesday, you cannot do the visit on Thursday.
Correct.
Because you have to have done the pre-verification checklist 48 hours before that.
Right. So that means you can do it a month in advance, 2 months in advance, as long as it's 48 hours before the verification visit.
And if it's not, the system will cancel out the appointment. You will not be able to submit the scores of the visit, which means then the candidate will have to have a new visit with somebody else.
Yes, because you cannot serve as the PDS.
Right, because that is a conflict of interest.
Right. Alrighty, so now it's demonstration time. Now it's time to schedule the visit. The application and payment must be processed by the council before a verification visit can be scheduled. Sometimes candidates call PDS and say, hey, I'd like to go ahead and schedule our verification visit if I can. At this point, you should not do that. You should ask the candidate, have you submitted your application along with payment, and has your application been approved? They may say no. Then you'll say, do that first. The system, you'll say include my PDS number, whatever that is, and the system will send me an alert that you've done so, and then from there, you'll say we'll take it from there.
Yes.
All right. Then once scheduled, the candidate must bring to the verification visit an original and complete professional portfolio and all the supporting documents. They must bring an original of the CDA Competency Standards book. It must be an original because you have to use the original comprehensive scoring tool that's located in the back of that book in order to complete the assessment. As Larissa said, so the pre-verification visit checklist has to be completed 48 hours before the visit.
Yes.
Before the visit. Before the visit. I cannot tell you how many inquiries we receive still on a daily basis of PDS calling, emailing us, telling us, I don't have access to the comprehensive scoring instrument. Well, that's because you did not complete the pre-verification checklist, maybe at all, or 48 hours before the visit.
Within your council.
Maybe
you called them, you might have called them, and that's great. But if you didn't actually put the information into your council, the system doesn't know that and cancels out your visit.
Cancels the visit. Remember, this is technology, and the system only follows the procedures that have been programmed.
Sure.
There's no way around it.
There is no way around it.
All right, so what does this pre-verification visit checklist look like? This is what it looks like through your council. And it says, please check when completed the picture ID. Well, a person would say, but I'm at home. I'm on the phone with the candidate. How can I check for their ID? What you'll say to the candidate would be, remember, bring your government ID that has your legal name on it. So this is a reminder for you to remind the candidate to bring a picture ID.
Yes.
If we look at the second item, please check when completed appropriate setting specific competency standards book. This is where you remind the candidate to bring their original book.
You'll also ask them what color the book is, because each book is color coded based on what setting it is.
Correct.
So you can tell if they've signed up for infant and toddler and then they tell you the wrong color, they have the wrong book. And that means you're going to have to contact the council because we got to figure some stuff out.
Correct. Sometimes a person just simply makes a mistake on
Yeah.
their application, and that has to be corrected before the verification visit can
Take
can
place.
happen. Yeah. All right. So also, please check when completed the professional portfolio. This is telling you what items have to be included in a professional portfolio. All right. So essential to the CDA credential are the verification visits. As I mentioned earlier, the PDS is endorsed in one or more of these settings: infant and toddler, preschool, family child care, and home visitors. And they have to match. So both the PDS and the candidate settings have to match.
Yes.
As well as if that candidate is bilingual or monolingual.
Right.
Because if, for example, if I speak Spanish at work and you don't speak Spanish at work, how will you conduct the verification
How are you
visit?
doing that?
It's not possible.
No,
You
it's
have
not.
no understanding of what is being communicated.
Right.
You don't know if the candidate would even know the children's names.
Right.
Some basic things. Because we've had PDS that actually tried to conduct verification visits where centers are speaking a
different language.
different language.
Yeah.
And then they call and try to state their case, and there's no case to
There's
state.
no case.
Right. All right. So we do require, strongly suggest, encourage our PDS to be organized. We want you to arrive on time. Why is arriving on time important? Well, we must be impeccable with our word. Also, we have to keep in mind that the candidates are nervous.
Yes.
They're very nervous about this.
So they're already like, oh my gosh, let's just get this over with.
Absolutely. And so I'm a former teacher. And if you've ever had someone observing you as a teacher, that is a little nerve-wracking.
Sure.
Or, especially if you're an undergraduate student, this is part of your program.
Right.
It's nerve-wracking to have someone observing you and literally watching you. So we want you to arrive on time. Help establish a nice, calm rapport. This may be the first time that you've laid eyes on the candidate. To be kind, to be on time, to shake their hand and tell them nothing to be nervous about. I'm here to assess what you know and how you engage with the children as the lead teacher.
Yes, and this is important. They must be serving as the lead teacher.
Now, their position can be teacher assistant, but during this 4-hour verification visit, while you're observing them for 2 hours, they have to serve as the lead teacher for that moment in time.
Yes.
Very, very important. You'll also ask for the candidate's identification. Oftentimes, the center will ask you for ID. So
Yes.
make sure you bring your state-issued government ID. Very, very important. You are to meet the supervisor. Introduce yourself to the supervisor. Remind the supervisor of why you're there, of why you are there, and how long you will be there.
And thank them for letting you come into their center.
Absolutely. Now, here's something I'd like to mention. What we do here at the council, we observe our PDS. So we will actually meet the PDS at the verification visit, and we observe the observer.
Yes.
In that instance, we let everyone know, from the candidate to the center director to the supervisor, everyone, that we will be there. It may be one person, it may be 2 people coming to observe the observer. So why do we observe the observer? You may wonder. Well, it provides us a quality assurance measure. We'd like to know, we need to know, we must know that all of our PDS are following our policies and procedures. And we need to make sure that everyone remains in compliance. This is a part of that, protecting the integrity of the CDA credential.
It also helps us see it in action so that we can recognize if there's anything that we need to focus on training, address with the PDS community and make sure that they understand it completely. So it just, when we get to see it in action, then we get to make sure every part of it is working as it should.
Very good. So now that brings us to the R.O.R model, which is review, observe, and reflect. This is a 4-hour process. So it is expected that the PDS is on site for 4 hours with the candidate. So for 1 hour, the PDS is reviewing the professional portfolio in a private room. For 2 hours, the PDS is observing the candidate in the setting as the lead teacher. And for the last hour, the PDS is spending time with the candidate in a reflective dialogue. This is where the coaching and the mentoring components of being a PDS kick in, because you get a chance to ask the candidate some questions. And as a matter of fact, on I believe page 52 of our PDS manual, we actually have the questions that the PDS should engage in with the candidate to help direct that conversation, because it's important to ask the candidate, about their philosophy in terms of being an educator and their approach in the classroom and where they plan on going within their career inside of ECE.
And this is why we love that the PDS is an expert in ECE, because they can help guide the candidate with their best next steps. So you find out what their goals are, you can help them decide, how do I move forward with those goals?
So it's important to note that you do not take the professional portfolio home with you.
No.
You are to return the professional portfolio and the competency standards book back to the candidate. You keep the comprehensive scoring tool, the CSI, and you never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, share the scores with the candidate, the supervisor, or anyone working inside of that facility. That's very, very important, because people think that those scores are the final determinations of whether or not they actually are credentialed. And the council uses both the exam and the verification visit in combination to determine whether or not a candidate is denied or actually credentialed. So again, let's go over the R.O.R model. No PDS can operate outside of this model. You can't use your own model as a PDS. So again, you're reviewing, observing, and reflecting with the candidate. It does last 4 hours, 1 hour to review the portfolio. Inside of their portfolio includes the transcripts, family questionnaires, certificates, the resource collection, etc. For 2 hours, you're observing the candidate working with children, and you are recording your findings. So if they are moving from the classroom to the playground, you, the PDS, you're moving along with the class throughout the facility. That's why it's very important, again, to introduce yourself to everyone, especially frontline staff at the center or the facility where you are, so that people will know that you're there and you're there on official business. And then for the last hour of that verification visit, you are in reflective dialogue with the candidate. All right, so now that moves us to the comprehensive scoring instrument, or the CSI. This is how the CSI looks in the competency standards book. And the PDS will take the candidate's book and remove the CSI from the book. Very important to note, PDS cannot use a copy. You must use the original from the book. Now, what is required of the PDS is to input their scores within 48 hours of the visit. So if your visit is on a Wednesday, by Friday, your scores have to be entered in your council.
Yes.
And we have a tutorial on that, so we can share that with, as a matter of fact, we share that with all PDS anyway.
Yes.
Alrighty, I think that's it for the scoring. That's why while you're on site, take comprehensive notes to remind yourself of certain instances, things you may want to note within the CSI on your counsel, you may want to, include a note or two about what you observed.
Also, the notes are important because we ask you to hold on to every CSI for at least 6 months after the visit. This is because if a candidate appeals or something happens where there's a question about their application, we might have to contact you and ask you to send us the original CSI, and we need to see what notes you made because those might make a difference in this appeal or in answering this question.
Yeah, or any question that the counsel may have or a question that the candidate poses to the counsel will depend on those notes. So taking comprehensive notes is very, very important.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that's we can wrap up right here. There's a lot more to share, but that information is shared once a person becomes a professional development specialist for the Council for Professional Recognition. We thank you for your time, and right now we'll take your questions.